Here are your Days of Our Lives spoilers for Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. Now that EJ remembers Rachel shooting him, he has to absorb the knowledge that a child tried to kill him because of what he did to her grandmother. He also wants to see Jihnny acquitted while making sure Rachel doesn't end up in serious trouble. Marlena can tell EJ has had a memory and gets Rachel out of the room so she and EJ can talk. Did Marlena know all along it was Rachel School L, or does EJ surprise her with what he's recalled? Either way, they must plan their next steps in order to protect Rachel. Rachel's mother, Kristen, is unable to ignore the facts. Does that mean she overhears Marlena and EJ talking and realizes that her daughter shot her brother? Kristen is not about to let anything happen to her baby girl, so she is bound to go to great lengths to keep Rachel safe and out of the hands of Child Protective Services. Will she make a drastic move for the sake of her daughter? Now that the defense and prosecution have rested their cases and they are just waiting for the jury to reach a verdict, Belle needs to decompress and face the fact that her relationship with EJ is over. At least she has an ex around to make her feel better. A lonely Belle and a lonely Philip run into one another and begin commiserating about the sorry state of their love lives. Philip hasn't had anyone in his life for almost the entire year so far, and now Belle is alone again. When Philip tells Belle that she deserves better than EJ, could he be referring to himself? Philip and Belle share quite a past, and there could be some unfinished business between them. It's not like Stephanie is giving Philip the time of day right now, but it might not be as over between Belle and EJ as Philip believes. Here's your Days of Our Lives recap for what happened on Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. When Johnny's trial went to the jury, Julie made a big decision and EJ recovered a memory. Marlena took Rachel to the bookstore in the square. While Foster helped Rachel find a book on snakes, Marlena sat down with Julie in the reading area. Julie started to ask Marlena if she was okay, but she caught herself and apologized. Every time somebody asks me that, it makes me very uncomfortable. Just know I'm there if you ever need me, Julie said. Marlena said she knew. Marlena asked Julie about her book. Julie confessed that she was reading the book to deal with her frustration over Chad's involvement with Kat. I know you are fond of Kat Green, and I am assuming that's because you were not directly affected by her abominable behavior, Julie said. Marlena agreed that was part of the reason. But I also found her contrition to be genuine, Marlena added. Julie argued that any contrition had been too little, too late. Julie admitted that she was disappointed that Chad had fallen for Kat. Marlena said that although she liked Kat, she respected Julie's feelings about her. Marlena reminded Julie that Marlena's daughters had dated men that she had hated. Julie told Marlena that she had been unable to keep quiet and that she had upset Chad. I know Chad has every right to get on with his life, every right to find love again. I just wish he wouldn't find it with her, Julie said. Marlena said that Chad and Kat had both insisted they were only friends. Julie changed the subject to the bookstore, and she admitted that she had considered buying it. Past tense? Marlena said. Julie said she feared she would run the store into the ground. I can't even believe that you would back away from a challenge, Marlena said. Julie thanked Marlena for her support. Here I am going on and on about myself, about things that are not important, Julie said. Marlena stressed that Julie's feelings about Chad were important. Marlena told Julie that she had been just as supportive of Marlena through the years. You and I both know there is no way ever to heal wounds that are this profound, Marlena said. Julie admitted that she missed Doug more each day rather than less. Is this what it is to have a broken heart? To be just so disoriented because he isn't there, Julie said. Julie acknowledged she had been lucky to have had Doug with her for so many years. The sweetest of sweethearts. Sometimes perspective just isn't enough, is it? Julie said. No. I would say to John, I can't even imagine a life without you. I know you must have said that to Doug, Marlena said. Julie nodded in agreement. And yet, here we sit, living within the nightmare of the unimaginable, Marlena said. But we're living and we are here, with our family, with our friends, with each other. Thank God, Julie said. Marlena agreed. At the counter, Foster showed Rachel a new book series. When Julie and Marlena rejoined them, Foster told Marlena that the book was on the house. "You just have to let me know how you like it, okay, Rachel?" Foster said. "I will, thanks," Rachel promised. After Marlena and Rachel left, Julie teased Foster. "Now I know why you're going out of business. You're giving your merchandise away for free." Julie asked if anyone had expressed interest in buying the store. Foster admitted that he was holding out for a sale to someone who wanted to continue to run it as a bookstore. Foster noted that independent bookstores were a dying breed. "But in Salem, dying breeds have a miraculous way of resurrecting themselves," Julie said. Julie said she wanted to buy the store. With a chuckle, Foster said that nothing would make him happier than to know that the bookstore was being taken care of by Julie. "I will do everything in my power to keep this place the wonderful place that it is," Julie vowed. Kat fixed breakfast for a recuperating Chad in her apartment. Kat again thanked Chad for having taken care of her and Felicity when they had been ill. "I like taking care of you, both of you," Chad said. Chad and Kat took their temperatures, and they were both back to normal. "I like spending time with you," Chad said. Kat agreed. "Just found out that Mom's being transferred to a facility near Salem and Aaron's moving back to go to Salem U in the fall," Kat announced. Chad started to hug Kat in celebration, then he pulled back. Kat joked that Julie would be thrilled for Chad to leave Kat's apartment. "Abigail's family is just going to have to get used to what's happening here," Chad said. "What's happening here?" Kat asked. Chad sheepishly said he didn't know, but that he cared about Kat. "You're a good friend," Chad said. While Chad went to Felicity's room to say goodbye, Marlena called Kat to tell her that she had decided to take a break from her practice. When Chad returned, Kat told him she had lost her job. "Something will turn up," Kat said. Judge Dabney called the court to order, and she acknowledged that Johnny was representing himself in court. Belle called Chanel back to the stand. Belle asked Chanel why she had threatened EJ. "I didn't," Chanel said. Belle asked Chanel to explain the video. Chanel stressed that she had never threatened EJ. "Are you insinuating that the video that we watched was somehow doctored?" Belle asked. "That is exactly what happened," Chanel testified. Belle recalled Johnny to the witness stand, and she questioned him about his expertise as a filmmaker. "That video is a deepfake, and I can prove it," Johnny said. Johnny testified that his grandfather had repeatedly undermined the town police, and that Stefano had taught his children to do it as well. The courtroom buzzed as the judge reminded Johnny to answer the DA's questions without commentary. Belle asked Johnny why the jury should believe his allegation and not assume it was an attempt to protect his wife. "I wouldn't have to protect my wife if somebody wasn't trying to frame her," Johnny said. Belle replayed the video. Johnny pointed out the inconsistencies. Johnny added that he had sent the video to a leading authority on AI, and the expert had submitted a sworn statement that agreed with Johnny's assessment. "Someone went to great lengths and great expense to make it look like my wife wanted my father dead on the night he was shot. That was not the case," Johnny said. Chanel looked over at EJ. With Johnny's testimony concluded, Johnny rested his case. The judge called for a recess before the start of closing arguments. During recess, a court officer commiserated with Leo about his talkative roommate in the hallway. Inside the courtroom, Chanel told Johnny that she was confident that Johnny would give a great closing argument. Nearby, Belle told EJ, "I would say you should be ashamed of yourself for what you just did to Chanel. But we both know you have no shame." When court was called back to order, Belle delivered her closing argument. For Johnny's closing argument, he talked about reasonable doubt. Johnny reminded the jury that EJ had mentioned a number of possible suspects, and that is because he is a hard man to love and an easy one to hate. In fact, I'd say just about everyone in Salem had a reason to want EJ Dimera dead that night. And I am profoundly sorry that someone else used the gun that I left behind to shoot my father," Johnny said. After closing arguments, the judge sent the jury to their room to deliberate on the case. Leo was elected jury foreman. When EJ argued to Johnny that he should have let EJ finish the case, Johnny said he had no interest in watching EJ convince the jury that Chanel had been the shooter. "Screw you," Johnny said. Chanel took Johnny by the arm and they left. "Johnny and Chanel find you as despicable as I do," Belle commented. EJ warned Belle not to be smug, and he noted that Marlena had admitted that Belle could have shot him. Belle noted that, unlike EJ, she would never do something so violent. "Not to mention, I had no reason to want you dead. At least back then I didn't," Belle said. At the cafe, Jihnny admitted to Chanel that he was scared. Belle joined them, and Chanel asked Belle for her opinion. "I'm just hoping that Jihnny is exonerated and we find out who actually shot EJ," Belle said. Belle mentioned that EJ had told her that Marlena had inferred to him that Belle had been the shooter. Confused, Jihnny asked why. Belle agreed that it did not make sense. "Whoever did shoot your father is someone that EJ and my mom would want to protect," Belle said. When Marlena returned to the mansion with Rachel, EJ was in the living room. Rachel made a crack about EJ's drinking, and EJ smirked. "You're becoming more and more like your mother every day," EJ muttered. While Marlena asked EJ about the case, Rachel picked up a glass paperweight and repeatedly tossed it. Marlena warned Rachel to put it down. A memory flooded back to EJ of the night of the shooting. Rachel had been pointing the gun at EJ, and he had told her to put it down. "Why don't you give that to me?" EJ had told Rachel that night. "Not until you tell me where my grandma Rachel is," Rachel had said. EJ heard a gunshot in his memory, and he snapped back to reality. Rachel had dropped the glass paperweight, and it had shattered on the floor. EJ remembered that Rachel had shot him. Marlena and Rachel are at the bookstore, where Foster tries to help find the little girl a book on snakes. He ends up selling her on a book about a little girl sorceress named Selena Salamander, who Rachel astutely notes sounds like the Harry Potter books. He insists it's better because a little girl is the hero in this one, and she unknowingly holds the key to defeating the dreaded destructor. The girl begs for spoilers, saying she always reads the last chapter first, so he reveals the key is trapped in the girl's mind. Marlena spots Julie engrossed in a book and says hello to her. Julie's reading about how to deal with situations you have no control over, and rants about Chad letting that Catwoman into his life after what she's done. Marlena points out that the two have insisted they are just friends, so Julie reminds her of their dear friend who sang about friends turning into lovers. Everybody sing, "What would you say if I told you? I've always wanted to hold you." Julie suggests they shift the topic to something fun, warm, and cozy, like this bookstore. Marlena understands it's up for sale. Julie admits she's considered bidding on it, and Marlena pushes her to go for it. They soon discuss their grief and how hard it is to move on after losing the loves of their lives. Later, Marlena thanks Foster for helping Rachel find a book, and he insists they take it on the house. Marlena tells Julie that she'll see her again soon, and they embrace. Julie jokingly scolds Foster for giving his merchandise away for free, which is clearly why he's going out of business. She asks if he's had any more bids, but he hasn't. Unfortunately, independent bookstores are a dying breed. Julie says in Salem, dying breeds have a way of resurrecting themselves, and she wants to buy his store. At Kat's place, after taking their temperatures, Kat and Chad are finally clear of their fevers. Chad celebrates finally being able to go home and get back out in society. Chad quickly apologizes, not meaning to suggest it's been so awful being here, but she understands. He admits he liked spending time with her, and Julie and Abigail's family will have to get used to what is happening here. She asks what is happening. He just never thought they'd get to this point, and he cares about her. He tells her she's a good friend. She is flustered, but that likely wasn't the word she wanted to hear. Chad knows it hasn't been easy for her to be separated from her family. She just got some good news. Her mom is being moved to a facility closer to Salem, and Aaron's moving home to play ball for Salem U. Chad goes to say goodbye to Felicity, and Kat takes a call from Marlena. Marlena breaks the bad news to her that, unfortunately, she is taking an indefinite leave of absence from work, so she'll need to find a new job. In court, Jihnny has dismissed EJ and is representing himself. Belle calls Chanel back to the stand and asks why she threatened EJ the night he was shot, as shown in the video they watched. Chanel didn't, and insists that the video was doctored. Belle calls Jihnny back to the stand and asks his opinion of the footage, as an indie filmmaker and director of the multiple award-winning soap, whose name we've all gladly forgotten. He points out the errors, indicating it's a deep fake, and has an expert on AI willing to swear that as well. Bell reminds him that the police authenticated the evidence, but Jihnny points out that his grandfather, Stefano, made a sport of discrediting the cops and taught his children how to do the same. Jihnny glares at his father, who sits in the back of the courtroom. Jihnny rests his case, and the judge breaks for a recess before closing arguments. Chanel tells Jihnny how proud she is of him. He is concerned about delivering a closing argument, but she's sure he'll nail it. Meanwhile, Bell tells EJ he should be ashamed of himself for what he did to Chanel, but they both know he has no shame. Leo talks to the bailiff about his insane roommate and hopes he can get a new one. Unfortunately, he can't help Leo. Court resumes session, and Bell begins her closing argument, speaking about Jihnny's mindset and motive the night EJ was shot, and his disappointment that his father survived the shooting. Jihnny gives his closing argument, admits he went to his father's house to shoot him, but couldn't. He says almost everyone in Salem had a motive to want him dead that night. He is sorry that someone else used the gun he left to shoot his father. All he can do is state it was not him, and hope that is enough to find him not guilty. The judge sends the jury to deliberate. EJ scolds his son and says he proved nothing to the jury, and he should have let him finish what he started. EJ tells his dad to screw himself for trying to frame his wife, and he and Chanel walk out. Bell tells EJ that Jihnny and Chanel find him despicable as she does. EJ tells her not to be so smug, as her own mother thinks she is the one who shot him. A mortified Bell calls the accusation ridiculous, pointing out that back then, she had no reason to want him dead. Leo tells the bailiff he has been appointed jury foreman and places their lunch order. He tells him to make sure Roman doesn't skimp on his chili cheese fries. At the bookstore, Foster tells Julie that he's ecstatic at the idea of selling to her. She cries that she'll do everything in her power to keep the store the wonderful place it is. At Kat's, she cries to Chad about losing her job. She is sure something will turn up, and Chad agrees. He needs to get home to his kids. He leaves, and both seem to be disappointed at having to part. Marlena brings Rachel back to the mansion. EJ is pouring a drink, and Rachel quickly judges him for boozing it up this early. He snaps that she's becoming more and more like her mother every day. As Marlena talks to EJ, Rachel decides out of the blue to toss a decorative glass ball from the mantel up in the air. Because why not play with an expensive work of art? Marlena tells her to put it down, as it's glass. EJ flashes back to Rachel pointing the gun at him the night he was shot. He falls into his chair in shock. In Horton Square, Belle runs into Jihnny and Chanel. She hopes Jihnny is exonerated and they find out who shot EJ. She tells them about EJ's crazy statement that her own mother thought it was she who shot EJ, which makes no sense. Whoever did shoot EJ is someone her mom and EJ clearly want to protect. Back at the mansion, EJ remembers telling Rachel to put the gun down and give it to him. She said, "Not until you tell me where my grandma Rachel is." He told her that he had no idea, but she thought he was lying. In the present, as Rachel drops the glass ball and it shatters, EJ recalls she shot him and dropped his drink, and his glass also shattered. In his memory, Rachel appears shocked at what she had done. On Days of Our Lives today, Monday, August 18th, 2025, Tony and Gabby iron out the details. Jihnny makes a questionable decision, and Marlena takes a breather. At the DeMera mansion, Tony came upon EJ having a minor meltdown following a phone call. During the call, someone had informed him that the judge had approved Jihnny's request to have EJ removed as his counsel. EJ sullenly declared, "My life is in ruins," to Tony. He brought his brother up to speed on the latest happenings with the trial, including Jihnny's unceremonious dismissal of him. Both EJ and Tony agreed that Jihnny's plan to represent himself was a terrible idea. Tony mentioned the video EJ had used against Chanel, and recalled seeing Rita and EJ with their heads together around the time the video had shown up at Belle's office. He correctly surmised that EJ had sent a doctored video to the DA. Tony scolded his brother for taking such extreme measures. EJ defended that he was willing to do whatever it took to clear his son. Tony harshly reminded EJ that those actions could personally cost EJ. He suggested the only way EJ could get back in Johnny's good graces would be to go against family tradition, admit what he had done, and beg for forgiveness. "Eat crow," EJ clarified with a huff. At Marlena's place, Belle expressed to Marlena how disappointed John would be in her for trying to send his namesake to prison. Marlena offered her daughter a comforting hug. She affirmed that John would be proud of Belle, but Belle continued lambasting herself for letting things progress so far with EJ. The conversation took a surprising turn when someone called to update Belle on Johnny firing EJ. After the call, Marlena wondered if the development could help Johnny's case. Belle concurred with Marlena's assessment that EJ had gone too far. She was also cautiously optimistic that Johnny could win his freedom if he could prove EJ's duplicity with the recording. She again swore off EJ. At Johnny and Chanel's place, Chanel arrived home to find Johnny studying the video of her confronting EJ. He was determined to prove the video was a fake. Chanel announced Johnny needed to drop it and focus on his defense. She only cared about clearing his name. The couple argued about the matter until Johnny stopped the conversation cold by divulging he had fired EJ as his attorney. Chanel didn't know what Johnny was thinking. Her outlook did not improve when Johnny added he would be defending himself going forward. Despite Chanel's reservations, Johnny pledged that he had the situation under control. He remained confident he was the best person to deliver a compelling closing argument that could win his case. Later, at the courthouse, Belle observed EJ brooding in the courtroom and strode up to inform him she knew about his dismissal from the case. Belle had no sympathy for him and noted that EJ had pushed Johnny away just as he had pushed her away. She considered it a sign from above that EJ had once again shown his true colors. Belle coldly told EJ to get used to the feeling of being alone and stalked off. Johnny and Chanel arrived next, and Johnny asked Chanel for a moment with his dad. EJ tried to explain himself, but Johnny read his father the riot act as well. He accused EJ of trying to drive a wedge between Chanel and him. EJ had wanted Johnny to make a choice between his wife and his father. Johnny told EJ he chose Chanel, and then walked away, leaving EJ alone yet again. At the Brady pub, Kayla groused about EJ's latest budget for the hospital to Steve. He found one silver lining in EJ's hospital takeover: the hiring of Stephanie. Kayla wasn't convinced it was such a good thing, but she was happy that Stephanie was thriving professionally and personally. At the mention of Stephanie's personal life, Steve took the opportunity to fill Kayla in on Alex's police record. The tale of the toga amused Kayla, and she joked about Stephanie dating a hardened criminal. Before Kayla left for work, Steve requested her help on a case. Her enthusiasm for the task dissipated when Steve revealed it involved Titan Dimera, and specifically Stephanie's associations with Alex and Philip. Kayla insisted she would not betray her daughter's confidence. She was willing, however, to tell Steve about Stephanie's vague reasoning for breaking up with Philip. Steve theorized that the shady dealings going on at the company had started with Philip, and he worried Stephanie was caught in the middle of it. At Stephanie's apartment, Alex presented his girlfriend with a small cake to celebrate her book birthday. Stephanie beamed when Alex showed her a market-ready copy of One Stormy Night. As she looked through the book with pride, Alex assured her she would soon be a bestseller and a beach read sensation. Stephanie thanked him for his belief in her and rewarded him with a kiss. Alex had to cut the celebration short to get to work. He complained about Xander hounding him regarding a special project. Stephanie grew curious when Alex mentioned he was investigating someone by the alias of Daniel Lucas, who had been looking into the company. After Alex left, Stephanie called Steve and asked him to meet with her. Later, Steve greeted Stephanie and asked what she needed. Stephanie immediately got to the point. She wanted to know why Steve was investigating a matter involving Alex. At first, Steve assumed Alex had told Stephanie about his police record. Stephanie was none too pleased to learn that her father had pried into Alex's background. Stephanie eventually got around to stating that when Alex had mentioned Daniel Lucas in relation to Titan Dimera, she had recognized the alias from stories Kayla had told Stephanie during her childhood about Steve. The detective confessed he was investigating the company, but he had no reason to believe his investigation would negatively impact Alex. Stephanie still wanted to give Alex a heads up. Steve asked his daughter to refrain from telling Alex anything. Steve wouldn't give Stephanie any details about the investigation because he'd be breaking client confidentiality. He theorized that Stephanie might have some knowledge of the turmoil at the company. Stephanie turned Steve's words back on him and said she couldn't disclose information told to her in confidence either. At Titan DiMera, Gabby informed Xander that she couldn't stop thinking about their kiss. When he tried to remind her it was a one-time-only, wine-induced occurrence, she quickly corrected that she felt terribly about it. Xander brushed it off as bad judgment on both their parts, but admitted that he considered Gabby a friend. He wanted her advice on picking a proper nanny for Victoria. After Xander finished listing all the potential problems with the nanny he had hired, Gabby deadpanned, "The only problem I see is you." Gabby lightly chided Xander about being a control freak, both with Victoria and with the business. She suggested he let her help out in the latter regard by offering ideas to improve Titan DiMera. Before she could get any further, Alex arrived at the door and Gabby made her exit. As soon as Xander learned of Alex's inability to find out the identity of Daniel Lucas, he deemed Alex a failure. Alex protested that he didn't have a way to uncover the mystery person's identity. Xander confided he had a pretty good idea of who had put the investigator on their trail, the DiMeras. He thought they'd been lucky to have the roots of the family strife remain undetected for so long, and he wanted to keep it that way. Xander then instructed Alex to bring Stephanie on board to work for them. Alex wasn't certain he could, but Xander insinuated Alex didn't have a choice. Back at the DiMera mansion, Gabby paid a visit to Tony and updated him on her progress with Xander. She wanted a written agreement detailing the terms of their deal. Tony obliged her and presented a pleased Gabby with a signed paper promising her the CEO position at Titan DiMera, along with perks Gabby had demanded. At the hospital, Kayla was supportive after Marlena said she would be taking a leave of absence from the hospital. While she still intended to see a few patients privately, Marlena didn't believe she could truly help anyone else until she helped herself. She admitted to still being disturbed about the dreams she was having of Stefano. Kayla suggested Susan's focus on Stefano could have triggered the dreams. She gave a grateful Marlena contacts for grief counselors, but Marlena remained troubled. Days of Our Lives. Spoilers for Tuesday, August 19th hint that there'll be a Rachel Black shooter revelation when EJ DiMera has a horrifying flashback. Johnny DiMera will also make a plea to the jury when it's time for closing statements, so here's what DOOL fans can expect. For starters, Day's spoilers say Chad DiMera will spend some time strengthening his connection with Kat Green. Although Chad's worried that Kat might be getting back together with an ex named James, he doesn't have the real story. Kat just had to make up an excuse to explain away Rafe Hernandez's soup delivery, so Chad doesn't really have to fret over a former flame. Chad is the one Kat truly wants, so she may find a way to let him know that soon enough. In the meantime, Chanel Dupree DiMera will go through cross-examination before closing statements are made in court. Now that Johnny is representing himself, he'll talk about his innocence and make a plea for the jury to see the reasonable doubt in this case. Other Days spoilers say Marlena Evans will hang out with Rachel while the trial continues, so that'll bring a trip to the bookstore. Rachel will chat with Foster, who'll also have a conversation with Julie Williams about the sale of the bookstore. It looks like Julie will move forward with buying it, so that'll give her a new sense of purpose and something to pour her heart into. Marlena may get updates on Julie's big news sooner or later, but they'll also have a catch-up session about all the drama in their families. Finally, Days spoilers say EJ seems poised to have an awful realization thanks to a very revealing flashback. Rachel will end up playing with a bauble at the DiMera mansion, so she might drop it and create a noise that mimics the sound of a gunshot. Will that trigger a memory flood for EJ and cause him to remember Rachel herself fired at him that night? It's certainly looking that way since Days of Our Lives spoilers confirm EJ's true shooter will be revealed to viewers on Tuesday's show. Days of Our Lives spoilers reveal that people are starting to connect the dots regarding Sophia Choi's baby. Tate Black seeks legal advice. Plus, Sarah Horton Kyriakis will continue to feel guilty about deceiving Brady Black. Then, there are other people who are getting suspicious as well. So, let's get started talking about this storyline. Ever since Sophia gave up her child, she's been having a hard time. A lot of people are hating on her right now, but she's also a teenager who was alone at the time of giving birth. There were a few times when Sophia wanted to tell the truth. However, Melinda Trask stopped her each time, offering a solution to the problem. It's really similar to what happened with Sloane Peterson as well. Sophia is young and her hormones were bouncing all over the place. Melinda is a grown woman and a lawyer who knows better. Then, we have Tate, who is insisting on meeting his child. Tate tried to write a letter to the fake adoptive parents. However, Melinda wrote back, rejecting Tate's request. It is teased that Tate and Holly Jonas will seek Belle Black's legal advice. Belle might say that she wants to see the original adoption contact. That could poke some holes in Sophia's story, especially since she initially claimed it was an open adoption. If it was an open adoption, then wouldn't Tate have a physical address, or at least a last name? Days of Our Lives spoilers reveal that during the week of August 18, 2025, Brady questions Sarah. It is also stated that Sarah tries to push Sophia into telling the truth. So, there are already a few different people that could blow the lid on this adoption secret. Over with Amy Choi, she is already getting suspicious. Not only is she worried about Sophia's mental health, but she is drawn to Tesoro. The woman mentioned that Tesoro looks exactly like Sophia's little brother. Amy isn't the only one who is suspicious. It seems that Javi Hernandez is already beginning to connect the dots. So, with all these players in Sophia's baby story, how will the truth come out? With these kinds of storylines, it's usually a medical crisis that exposes the truth. We saw when Tesoro was first born, he had a crying fit. Nothing was discovered then, but Tesoro could still have a hidden medical problem. If that happens, then Sophia might not have any choice but to come forward. What happens when everyone realizes the truth?